It's the sound of ideas from 90.3 WCPN Idea Stream. I'm Mike McIntyre. Good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. A significant percentage of troops who return home from Iraq and Afghanistan suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, and an alarmingly large number of these soldiers and veterans deal daily with chronic pain. Traditional treatments can mean a lot of pills, leading to another concern, addiction. Can complementary and alternative therapies help to heal veterans and cut into the need for prescription medications? The National Institutes of Health is spending $22 million over 5 years on 13 studies to help determine just that. Researchers are looking at morning light therapy, self-hypnosis, mindful meditation, biofeedback, and the like. Advocates say horseback riding, interacting with dogs, art therapy, even fly fishing can help veterans heal. And we're going to learn this morning about many of those ideas. They may not yet have the science behind them, but do they work? Joining us to begin this morning's show is Bob Rich. He's chairman of the global food company Rich Products and chairman of the board of directors and trustees for the Cleveland Clinic. He's the author of a novel, Looking Through Water, about fishing and its healing effects, and proceeds from his book sales, which begins today. The book is released just this afternoon. We'll go to Project Healing Waters, which uses fly fishing and other outdoor activities to promote the physical and emotional rehabilitation of military veterans. And we welcome Bob to Studio 4 right now. Hey, Bob.
Hey, Mike. I understand from Umberto Fedeli that you're a great guy.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Bob's obviously on the board with Mr. Fedeli. Also, we welcome Lisa Gallagher to the program. She's joining us by phone from work. She's a music therapy manager at the Cleveland Clinic's Art and Medicine Institute. Lisa, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Very nice to have both of you with us. So, Bob, you wrote this book, and it's not your first. You've written a number of nonfiction books about fishing. You're in the Fishing Hall of Fame in Florida. You're a big fisherman, a big fly fisherman, particularly.
About 220 pounds worth.
Okay, good. So you obviously are into fishing and the effects of fishing on your own life. What about how that translates to veterans? Project Healing Waters is the group that you're involved with.
Right. Well, let me back up a little, Mike. I'm fortunate to have a good day job, so I don't need the proceeds from the book to get by. And so we were looking around for someone that would be really worthy and doing great job. And I'm learning about this, maybe a lot like your listeners, about some of the issues with veterans. So we chose the veterans to give the proceeds to, and specifically Project Healing Waters.
And this organization is one that says, let's use fly fishing to get people sort of outside of their realm. And supposedly, if you suffered from maybe a pain condition or PTSD, there'd be some calming effect. You know a lot about that. What do you see as the calming effect of casting a fly?
Well, I started out being a skeptic. I thought this was giving people a day away, and that was it. And I've become a believer in whether it's riding or fishing or many of the other things to get vets back into a healthy sport in an environment. And you talk about water being healing. I think water has healing whether you're a veteran or just someone looking for a spiritual renewal. So it makes a great backdrop, and the people I've talked to, the veterans who've been involved in projects like this, you can't find anybody who's more thankful for people reaching out to them.
Our number is 216-578-0903 if you'd like to join our conversation. I hope you will, particularly if you are a veteran, and perhaps you're one who has been suffering from PTSD or chronic pain. Studies show, alarmingly, something like 44% of U.S. military veterans suffer from chronic pain. In fact, the stat there, it's a June 2014 report from the Journal of the American Medical Association's Internal Medicine document. It says 44% suffer from chronic pain among U.S. military after combat deployment compared to 26% in the general public. Perhaps that's you. And they talk, too, in that study about the number of military veterans who use opioids, 15% as opposed to 4% of the U.S. population. Love to hear your thoughts on that, or whether it's PTSD as well. We want to hear from you about what kind of therapies you've been exposed to and perhaps what works. 216-578-0903, or send us an email, news@wcpn.org. Lisa Gallagher at the Cleveland Clinic's Art and Medicine, the Institute of Art and Medicine. You work with music therapy with a number of patients. I wonder about veterans specifically. Do you deal with them?
Absolutely. Many veterans, of course, get hospitalized for many different things. So we have worked with a variety of veterans at the clinic, and especially helping them deal with chronic pain and traumatic experiences that they've gone through, and PTSD, TBI. So, yes, we've seen the gamut.
And TBI being traumatic brain injury.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about how music therapy works with this population?
Absolutely. In fact, music therapy got its start working in veterans hospitals after World War II. And it was used for improving morale and the physical and emotional rehabilitation. We use a wide variety of techniques with individuals, so it depends on what we're trying to treat. But we might get folks engaged in making music or drumming, stress management, relaxation exercises with music, songwriting to express feelings. So those are just a very short list.
216-578-0903 is the phone number to call, 866-578-0903. So, Bob, you picked this particular veterans organization, and it involves fishing, but the book itself is not necessarily about a veteran. Tell me a little bit about the book.
Well, it really is. I was surprised
Okay.
as I look back, Mike. The hero is a guy who went to Vietnam, had a bad experience, and lost faith. And he was spit at in the airport when he came back. And in today's world, I think a lot of us feel that we can never allow that again. We've got to, we've got to pay back. And I've had a healthy, happy life, but everything we have in our company is thanks to the veterans, and I think it's appropriate for you to be dealing with this subject with Veterans Day coming up on the 11th of November. And by the way, we can continue this discussion over at Joseph Beth Bookstore in the Cleveland Clinic in the main lobby, and I hope Lisa will stop by and say hello. And we're going to be having our first book signing, and I'm hoping that...
when is that?
That'll be starting at 11 o'clock today, and I'll be there for a couple hours and look forward to meeting a lot of the docs and a lot of the caregivers and a lot of the veterans and letting them know that we do more than share their pain. We're reaching out to make sure that they get all the rights and privileges they deserve, and they get them in a timely fashion.
According to the VA, experts estimate that veteran groups that have experienced PTSD, you mentioned Vietnam War, your protagonist is a Vietnam veteran, up to 30% of Vietnam War veterans experience PTSD, compared to 10% for Gulf War and 20% for Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom. Clearly a problem with Vietnam.
Yeah, and I've seen it firsthand, and friends who seem to be healthy and strong and whatever are bearing wounds that nobody knows in many cases. So I think fishing's a wonderful release. The book, Looking Through Water, deals with a family, but it deals with hurt, and it deals with rediscovering your faith. So I'm looking forward to meeting some of the people in Cleveland today, and we're hoping they'll buy some Christmas presents. A book's always a good read, better than that damn Christmas tie that you might
Gotcha. Well, Lisa deals with music therapy. You were just talking about fly fishing. A little bit later, we're going to be having a gentleman on that talks about how art therapy can help. And we'll also talk a little bit about dogs, the relationship with man's best friend, and how that can help in this equation, too. I wanted to share with you a post I had on Facebook from a relative of mine who is a Gulf War veteran, deployment there. I just thought it was interesting because it peeks into the mind of a young person who has come back. He says, it may seem strange to those who don't understand, but it will make perfect sense to those who do. I found myself on edge lately and totally lost in emotions. I can't get out of my head and stop thinking about how much I miss being dead tired, covered in dust, low on supplies, and trying to get a power nap in a goat pen. And he goes on. But you think about that notion where you almost miss it, and that sort of the idea of needing some sort of release and therapy. Yeah, clearly he does. And part of it is getting it out and a message and getting the support on Facebook.
Right.
But you think about a lot of those alternatives.
Oh, absolutely. Mike, and you and the people at WCPN are doing a great job to focus on this question. We just can't let this happen. And, this is not a new problem. Everybody, people coming back from the Second World War who were looked on as maybe ignored or different or whatever. And the problem existed then, and we've come a long way in this country. And I love the dialogue you're having today.
Let's have Carla join our dialogue right now. She's calling from the East Side. Carla, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for calling in.
Good morning. I'm really thankful for the chance to talk to you today, and I'm grateful for the guests that you have on your show this morning. I'm a veteran Gulf War vet, Iraq, and still serving in the military. And I cannot agree more that this is a critical topic that you're talking about today.
Tell me about your experience. Have you dealt with issues of either pain or PTSD, or just, as I just noted from a relative of mine, just sort of that dealing with the emotions of being back and almost wishing you were there in a weird way?
Well, absolutely. I'm a medical provider in the military, and I deal with it on a regular basis. I'm serving in the National Guard. But as a medical provider, that doesn't mean that I only go in once a month. Everybody's got my cell phone number, and I take calls regularly with people who are suffering from the symptoms and the diagnoses that you've been talking about this morning.
What about alternatives then? We've talked a lot. We did a whole show here on complementary and alternative medicine, and the Cleveland Clinic has a big devotion to that with a whole separate institute, and we have on the show, too, Lisa Gallagher, who's obviously dealing with that from the Art and Medicine Institute. But there are a lot of docs who say, well, we don't have the evidence on that. There's no science on that yet, and so it oughtn't be something that's as ballyhooed. In terms of what you've seen for veterans, do complementary or alternative approaches help?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, I'm in complementary. I'm in integrative medicine. I work through University Hospital. I want to give the clinic kudos for their art and music therapy, and we're doing similar programs at University Hospital. What I can say about the science behind things is, well, I know that this might sound a little bit sarcastic, but how are we doing so far? And treatments that we've been given these veterans, myself included, and all the drugs that we're talking about, they're Band-Aids. They're Band-Aids, and they're not healing. They're not healing modalities. And we're seeing that because we're seeing 22, 23 people die a day, self-inflicted. And it's critical. We're beyond worrying about what science is saying at this point. I can say, because what I do, the manual therapy that I do, and trauma release exercises and myofascial release and yoga, and there's so many things out there, and I see so much more promise with that than what our traditional care has been for the veteran population, as well as the civilian population, as far as I'm concerned.
Carla, thank you for the call, and you're right. University Hospitals does have a very robust art therapy program. In my other job over at the Plain Dealer, I had the opportunity to meet Peter Rinaldi, who was a patient there last February. I wrote a piece about how he had actually an art opening right there at University Hospital's Case Medical Center, and all the docs came out to it, and patients as well, and talked a lot. Peter did a lot about how art therapy helped him recover from his cancer. Thanks so much for joining our show today.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Let's have Judy in Westlake jump in now. Hello there, Judy. Welcome to the show.
Hi. I just wanted to. I'm a blind veteran, and I haven't really suffered from PTSD, but just the everyday trying to deal with not being able to see. I've had many classes of adaptive therapy and activities of daily living, and I participated at the Blind Center in Cleveland, which is a wonderful program. So I wanted to tell everybody about that. Sometimes it's the best kept secret, and there are blind centers throughout the United States that help people who become blind later in life, who are veterans or who are blind because of combat. And I participated in Healing Waters in Colorado, and I had a sighted guide right next to me. And just the situation of standing at the bank and flicking the line and having them just, tell me, go ahead and do it. I caught 13 fish. I got to hold them. They helped me with the hook, but I wasn't able to hook up with any fly fishing here in town because I just haven't been able to find the program. So I'm willing to buy all my equipment and so forth, but I just need a sighted guide.
Judy, this is Bob Rich. If you could shoot me an email at at bobrichbooks.com. I'd love to hook you up with people in Cleveland because it's a wonderful fishery. There are a lot of avid people here who want to get involved, and I want to go fishing with you. With those 13 fish, you caught a lot more fish than I've ever caught.
She's got a lot of luck. Judy, I've written down your number because it shows up here on my call screen. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. That one did, and can I share that with Bob?
Yes,
okay.
If you would do that, that would be a little bit easier.
Okay, very good. I'll do that.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for the phone call.
Mr. Rich, this is wonderful.
Judy,
right.
one quick question for you.
Hold on, Judy. Let Bob ask you a question.
A quick question for you. When you look at when you think about your reading and things you're missing, are you more interested in books on tapes or Braille, or what? Have you started getting involved in programs?
I have been right along. I've been dealing with this for almost 20 years, but you still get that point of I spent all my time arranging my life around transportation, and I just need something that I know that I'm going to be going to on a regular basis, and that I have a cited guide for it, because
right.
all the other. And it just would be so wonderful. I participate in support groups. There are two wonderful support groups for the visually impaired at the Blind Center. And if anybody needs services, you get in touch with the VIST coordinator.
Very good.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Judy, thank you so much for your time this morning. Did you have one last point you wanted to make? We've got to hit a break here in a second.
Vietnam vet. I've been a widow for 15 years. He went through therapy, and if it wasn't for his private insurance to pay for the 3 years of the psychologist, I don't think, and he also had a connection with a spiritual group, and those two things made all the difference in the world. This happened in his late 40s.
Very good, Judy. Thank you so much for sharing that with us as well. Appreciate your call this morning. Lisa Gallagher at the clinic, how do you get your patients? Are they referred by their physicians, or do people just hear? If I'm a veteran who's dealing either with pain issues or some other matters, and I think that music therapy might help, how do I find out about it?
Well, currently we are seeing just the inpatients, and they're referred by their physicians or nurses, social workers, psychologists, or people can ask for it themselves. So if you're a vet and you get hospitalized at the clinic and you think music therapy might be helpful for you, just ask your nurse or doctor to put in a referral for you.
Very good. We're going to take a quick break right here. As we take our break, we're saying goodbye to Bob Rich. You've got a book signing to get over and get ready for. Thanks so much for being with us.
Love to see some of your listeners and continue the conversation. Mike, thanks for allowing me to be with you.
And thanks for being with. Bob's book is Looking Through Water. It's a novel, his first novel. He's written several other books about fishing. And we're going to continue our conversation about alternative therapies for veterans. Lisa, can you hang with us just a little bit?
Absolutely.
All right, Lisa will be here, and we're going to be welcoming some other guests to the conversation, and we'd love to have you join us, too. Margie and Shirley, you're both going to have your calls taken right after this break, and you can line up in the phone call line, too, at 216-578-0903. It's The Sound of Ideas. I'm Mike McIntyre, and we're back in just a minute.
Support for 90.3 comes from Tech Elevator, Cleveland's 14-week coding boot camp, preparing students for careers in technology as a software developer. An open house will be held on November 5th and 6th. More information and aptitude test and registration at techelevator.com.
I'm Meghna Chakrabarty. Chicken is a menu staple, but not just in the U.S. As resident chef Kathy Gunst points out, it's loved all around the world.
There's French coq au vin, there's Italian chicken marsala, there's chicken piccata, there's Indian chicken vindaloo, there's chicken curries.
That's next time on Here and Now.
Later today, beginning at noon here on 90.3.
Metro Health is committed to improving the lives of the people who live in Cuyahoga County. Each year, Metro Health cares for more than 5,000 trauma patients in the area's Level 1 Adult Trauma Center. Metro Health treats more than 1,700 burn injuries annually at the state of Ohio's Verified Burn Center for adults and children. Whether the situation is critical or a routine checkup, Metro Health Care is nearby with 18 locations. We're here for you, for all of you. More information at metrohealth.org.
Lectures, panel discussions, films, interviews, a big juicy concert, they're all part of the celebration of this year's Rock Hall Music Master, Smokey Robinson. Get details today at 2 and 10 p.m. on The Sound of Applause from 90.3.
You're back with The Sound of Ideas. I'm Mike McIntyre, and we're talking today about alternative therapies for veterans, complementary and alternative medicine, integrative medicine. Those are all topics that we've addressed here before on The Sound of Ideas, talking about it. We're talking about it now specifically in context of veterans, many of whom come back from their deployments with PTSD issues or chronic pain issues. And there's a move afoot, the National Institutes of Health, putting millions of dollars into studying the efficacy of these alternative treatments, maybe a way to reduce the prescription drug avalanche, really, whether it be opioids or other drugs as well, that military veterans then are faced with taking on a daily basis. You can join our conversation at 216-578-0903. We'd love to have you with us. Lisa Gallagher is still with us. She's a music therapy manager at the Cleveland Clinic Art and Medicine Institute. And joining our conversation now is Matthew Slater, Director of Veteran Services for Family and Community Services Incorporated, Ohio. Very good to have you with us.
Thank you so much.
You also deal with art for veterans, right?
Yes, we have a 12-week recovery from homelessness program that is actually based in the creative arts therapy. We actually do music, art therapy, creative writing, drama therapy. And it was actually brought to us by a gentleman. He was a Royal British Marine, and he had his master's in drama therapy and brought this concept to us, and it's had quite the impact on working with homeless vets.
Well, we'll get into some of those details. Let me tell you who else is with us in Studio 4 now. Frank DiLorenzo with Wags for Warriors. Hey, Frank, how are you?
Good, sir. How are you?
Good. Very good to have you with us, and you brought a friend.
I did. I got Sophie, my service dog, with me.
Sophie. I love Sophie.
Yep.
Sophie's hanging out over there.
Yep, she's under the desk right now.
Probably won't hear her.
Nope, she ain't going to make a sound.
So she's your service dog?
She is my service dog, yes.
So what does Sophie do for you?
Sophie's for my post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury. The whole list of things, medication reminders, pulling out of flashbacks, waking from nightmares, circling me while I'm in a crowd and I have a panic attack. Just being there to calm me down if a panic attack happens.
And how does that calming happen?
The dogs pick up on it on themselves, and then they just, it's a dog. They're going to love you no matter what. It is the purest medication out there.
Anybody who has a dog, by the way, knows that.
Exactly. And she knows it, and she comes up and she'll start licking me. She'll get me to pay attention to her instead of focusing on what's going around me.
And does that do it for you? I mean, does it then take that crisis moment out of play?
It does. It'll ground me. It'll get me to focus back on, real life instead of what's going on in my head. So it's a huge part. It really does work.
Let me ask you a little bit about your service. Where were you deployed?
I deployed over in Iraq, 2004. I did 13 years between Army and National Guard, and that was the service there.
And do you find that you're not unusual among the many friends that you had that were in the military with you, that they also suffer from, whether it's full-on PTSD or at least some issues of sort of being back in civilian life?
All my friends right now are diagnosed with PTSD and TBI. Those are the main injuries coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan.
And the TBI is like concussion related,
correct?
Generally?
You could hit your head, blast concussions, anything. Even just shooting a tank off. Rounds and rounds, it just bruises the brain.
And so there's a lot of folks. Do you get together and do you have like a support group type of thing?
Oh, that's what we do at Wags for Warriors. We bring in the veterans, and we're only open to veterans and their families, so they're comfortable being down there. And we bring their dogs in, and they train with us, and we train them to be their service dogs. So it's a calming environment.
216-578-0903 is the phone number. Call 866-578-0903 is the toll-free number. And you can also reach us via email. SOI@WCPN.org is the best way to get through to us now. SOI@WCPN.org. Love to have you join us in any of those ways. So, Matt, how does it work in the program that you have, where it's art therapy, music therapy, all of these types of things? How are veterans referred to your organization? And I wonder if you were a veteran who came in, I mean, look at this big guy over here, right? And you say, hey, a dog can make you feel better. I don't know. I'm a dog guy, so I could buy that right away. Yeah. But if you came in and they said, well, let's draw a picture. Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
So how do you get people sort of on board with that idea that this will be helpful to them?
The first question with how we get vets referred, unfortunately, we have too many vets that are homeless. So yeah, we get them referred from the VA, from the vet service commissions, but word of mouth it's amazing amongst vets. Word of mouth, it spreads out there. So certainly, and it's interesting because usually it's potential funders, people are coming in and, who are wanting to give and say, so you're telling me that you've got a vet who's been on the street for 30 years or a new combat vet coming back and you're telling him to draw a picture and that's going to help.
Right.
Or, talk about the lyrics to a song that you like. And it's amazing because the impact that it has, because we're so focused on the current treatment modalities, current treatment, talk therapy treatment.
Talk therapy or drugs.
Exactly. And we believe that and have learned that trauma is trapped in more than just the neck up. We believe it's trapped in the whole body. So, and most of our vets have not been able to tell a story in a way that has been validated or heard. So through music therapy, through drama, through art, through drawing that picture. And if you come to any of our sites, you'll see all the poetry and all the artwork that the vets have done. They're able to tell their story and have it validated not only by their veterans and comrades in arms, but also by the staff and by the community who come in and see the artwork and the poetry and the work and the stories that they've done. And we've had showings at the Akron Art Museum with Miami University. It's unbelievable, the impact.
So the first brush stroke or the first sentence or the first stanza might be the most difficult, but do they find after they get rolling on that they themselves are giving the testimony to how beneficial it is?
Absolutely. Yeah, they are the ones that are telling us, yes, we changed this because, as I heard earlier talking about, why do we keep on doing, it was Einstein that said, insanity is just defined by continue to do the same things and expect different results. So, we kind of looked at, what is the homeless model where we are continuing to expect different results but providing the same treatment?
So it makes me think that you must have some quantitative results then. So after somebody is engaged in painting pictures and writing poems, do we see then that they're not homeless?
So yeah, and that's one of the interesting things is there's not a whole lot of research out there, and typically social service programs like mine aren't necessarily the best at doing that. And that's why we've partnered with Kent State University. And we have been doing a study for about the past year. And we're hoping to publish a paper here in the upcoming year to talk about what a lot of people would consider fluff, which we consider absolutely a core value of what we do, and the actual hard statistics on the change that it's creating with optimism, with self-esteem. And we saw, just very quickly, we saw our numbers go up when we implemented this program in 2012. Our success rate, which we calculate vets moving into permanent housing, we saw it go up from 70% to 90%. And then since then, it's around 80%. And just to kind of give a sense of what do those percentages mean, the national average of these VA-funded programs right now is around 65%. So we saw a pretty high impact.
Lisa, I wonder in your practice, are you able to quantify the benefits of music therapy for this particular population?
Absolutely. More and more research is being done that is backing what we've been talking about. But also in our individual sessions, we keep data. We ask patients to rate their pain, their mood, their anxiety, their stress level before we begin a session. And then we do this session, and then we have them rated again at the end of the session. And then that helps us quantify and measure and show that music therapy has been effective for a particular patient.
I'll tell you what this show needs right now. We need more veterans calling into the program, and I invite you to do that now at 216-578-0903. We heard from a couple earlier. We'd love to hear from you and what you think about the idea of this alternative therapy, or integrative medicine is another word for some of the things we're talking about, or complementary, which means you still do the talk therapy and the other things, but this is an addition to it. Feel free to call us and let us know what your experiences are. 216-578-0903, 866-578-0903. That's toll free. Or send us an email, soi@wcpn.org. You can always tweet at us, at Sound of Ideas. We're tweeting out some of the quotes and thoughts from today's show, and you can respond to those or just add your own. We'd love to have you communicate in any way that you can. Let me have Margie join our conversation now. She's calling in from Brecksville. Margie, welcome to the show. Thanks for calling.
Oh, absolutely, Mike. Thank you for having me. Mike, I am a clinician here, and I wanted to put it out there for the vets and other trauma survivors of a therapy modality known as EMDR, standing for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And basically, it is a therapy for overcoming anxiety, stress, and chronic trauma.
And what does it do? How do you do that?
Well, basically, a clinician trained in this EMDR methodology, basically by the pioneer, Dr. Francine Shapiro. She's a PhD, and it uses eye movement. The clinicians are set up. Some can use their fingers to, shift the eye movement. But basically, they're not sure exactly psychologically, what propels the healing forward. But it is just immeasurable in terms of addressing the vets, their chronic state, which is impacted by their triggers, their flashbacks, the social phobia and isolation. And it takes information from the primitive part of the brain where those tracks are replayed over and over and over again with regards to their experiences, moving it forward to the prefrontal lobe where the events can be processed in the here and now, and making it more manageable, rather than reliving the state.
Right.
Right.
It sounds interesting.
Yeah, I wanted to put it out there, and there is, if they Google EMDR, a whole site will come up of the National Institute, and among that are providers in our area. So I just really, really hope that either the clinicians treating the vets, Lord knows, I really believe it's life saving. I've seen it. Life-saving.
Margie, thanks so much for the phone call. Appreciate that. It's another one I hadn't heard of. And Frank, I wonder, when you were first dealing with your PTSD from your service, I would think Googling things is what a lot of people do, and you see a whole lot of ideas. And someone says, you should go get this reorientation brain therapy, and you should do this and that. How did you wade through all that stuff?
Luckily, my wife did. With my thinking process, I wasn't able to do any of it.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, you're not in a position really.
No, I wasn't, and and those were the reasons I lost my first two jobs. It's because I couldn't think and process stuff. So my wife was able to do it all for me, and that's why the service dog came around. She kind of pushed it, and I got a prescription from a doctor one day. Said, "Here, go get a service dog. It'll help me for your PTSD." That's all I got. Didn't tell me where to go, anything like that. So. There's a lot of ideas out there, a lot of great ideas. Unfortunately, if the VA doesn't do them, we don't get to do them.
So what you guys did, you and your wife set up this organization in 2011 that essentially puts the veteran together with the dog. You basically are the network.
We are. We 90% of our dogs are rescued, actually, and Sophie here was about a week from being put to sleep when we got her. And then we rescue a dog, we place it with a veteran. They come in and do the training with us. We pay for the dog, the training, the equipment, and the vet bills. There's no reason a veteran should have to pay to heal after they've paid the ultimate price of going over there and serving their country. So, we do it all for free for them. And 270 veterans in 4 years. It's working.
Wow. Let's have another phone call before we take our break here, and our guest will hang with us, and we'll continue to take your calls and talk about this very important issue. Let's have Shirley right now in Shaker Heights join our conversation. Shirley, welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Morning.
I wanted to point out an interesting therapy that I was introduced to personally. I am a yoga instructor. It's called Yoga Nidra, yogic sleep. And what this does is it incorporates several things: biofeedback, hypnosis, meditation, and breathing. A person lays down and someone facilitates all of those different techniques to the person who's lying down, and they go into what would be a quasi-sleep state, but they're still cognitive and they can hear you. Dr. Richard Miller has a format of this Yoga Nidra called I Rest Yoga Nidra. He's been working with the Department of Defense since Desert Storm, working on soldiers who have PTSD and trauma. and they've seen significant gains in this type of treatment versus just hypnosis or just drug therapies. And he continues to do studies with the Department of Defense.
Interesting stuff. Now, this isn't full-on sleep. Like, I often wake up in downward-facing dog. That's not what we're talking about.
No, it's not. You're laying down. There's various exercises a person is given by a facilitator where you're maybe tensing and releasing, breathing techniques, use of hypnosis to bring a person down so that they can safely reconnect to their bodies. You lose that as a person who has experienced trauma. And it's a safe way where the person is in a deep, relaxing state, and they learn to reestablish trust in the body. Some of these studies are pointing to regrowth of the prefrontal cortex and hippocampus. People are seeing less reactivity, less startling reflexes. It's utterly amazing. And I wanted to say that as someone who experienced medical trauma as a child, I had years of chronic insomnia and chronic pain. It is amazing what it can do for somebody. Studies are pointing to just 11 hours of exposure to something like this or transcendental meditation. People experience a positive healing process in this.
Shirley, thanks so much for the call. I love that we're getting all these interesting ideas that we hadn't really addressed. We've got some good ones here. In fact, we also had, we were talking about equine therapy. We had a guest lined up to talk a little bit about that. And this morning, some emergency and wasn't able to make it, but the Brecksville Stables, an organization called Oscar Mike Therapeutic Riding, another example where getting vets basically on horseback can be something. So everything that I would consider an amazing vacation, having a great dog with you, going fly fishing, riding a horse, all of those things, playing some music, enjoying art, all of those things are things that can help with the healing. It stands to reason if you just think about it that way. You know, the sort of things that make you feel good in general might make you feel good when you're in trauma.
Absolutely.
We're going to take a quick break right here. Lisa, I appreciate you hanging on the phone. I'm not going to make you do that any longer. Thanks for being with us from the Cleveland Clinic's Art and Medicine Institute. Appreciate your input this morning.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. And our guests in studio are going to stay with us. Sophie is going to stay here with Frank DiLorenzo, and we're going to continue to have Matthew Slater with us as well, Director of Veteran Services for Family and Community Services Incorporated. And we'd love to have you join us at 216-578-0903. Jim in North Olmsted will get your call right after this break, which we're taking right now.
Support for 90.3 is provided by Wayside Furniture in Akron, family-owned and operated for over 78 years. 200,000 square feet of furniture and custom-crafted cabinetry. Online at wayside-furniture.com.
Support for 90.3 comes from Half Price Books, offering book lovers a selection of titles including new releases and bestsellers. Information on the Half Price Books email list, store events, and more at neighborhood stores or at halfpricebooks.com.
Support for 90.3 comes from United Way of Greater Cleveland, which sees people not just for who they are, but for who they can become. Through strategies that advance education, financial stability, and health, and programs that bring out the best in every person who is helped, United Way provides an opportunity to make a difference. Information about United Way's work to create a healthy, financially stable community where every kid graduates is available at unitedwaycleveland.org. Support for WCPN comes from Door to Door Organics, an online grocery delivery service that partners with local farmers to bring the season's organic produce and local natural groceries to homes in Greater Cleveland. More information at doortodoororganics.com.
You're back with the Sound of Ideas from 90.3. It's about 9:45 a.m. Coming up in the next hour, Diane Rehm and her guest will discuss the White House's plans to deploy special forces to Syria and what this means for the fight against ISIS. And tomorrow on the Sound of Ideas, we'll take a historic and present-day look at perceptions of black men in America. Right now, we're talking about how alternative therapies for veterans work and if they can help with service-related ailments. Still with me in studio is Matthew Slater, Director of Veteran Services for Family and Community Services, as well as Frank DiLorenzo. He's a veteran and founder and head trainer with North Royalton's Wags for Warriors. Sophie, his service dog, is with us too, being very, very quiet. You can join us at 216, don't be quiet, 216-578-0903 or 866-578-0903. Shoot us an email, soi@wcpn.org. Before the break, I said that Tim was hanging on from North Olmsted, and now he's on the show. Tim, thanks for waiting.
How you doing? It's actually Jim. But
oh, sorry, Jim. Oh, that's right. I'm reading it wrong. It's my glasses, not the call screener. My bad.
That's great. No, I just want to make a comment. And first off, thank you for what you guys are talking about today. Super important. I'm an Iraq and Afghanistan veteran. I've been enrolled in the VA. I've been used other programs in regards to, dealing with my reintegration back home. One of the challenges I just wanted to bring up because the VA, it's getting the treatment to the veterans that need it, because not all veterans are actually the same. So you're talking about VA-related services, but then you have a lot of nonprofits. So there's a lot of screening and understanding of how for the veterans to actually navigate the VA, get through the administrative issues, and then to scheduling, to stay consistent, and then to include when they reach out to the nonprofit community to figure out there's a lot of veteran wash out there, if you will, because just figure out who actually is going to be consistent and who's actually going to work with the veterans on a consistent, basis based on, veteran schedules, trying to come back home, trying to get that sense of purpose again. So it's really interesting. It's very storied. Each veteran's case is different, but I think there's a lot of considerations like that need to be taken, in the point.
Really excellent points. Frank, what about that idea that every veteran is different and every one of these approaches needs to be different?
Absolutely. Every veteran that comes into our program, their PTSD, it may be PTSD, but each trauma is different they've gone through. It's one of those things that, we do what we can. The VA sometimes misses, and that's when outside support, the people that love the veterans and the veterans themselves, support themselves and step up to what we're missing out on the VA.
What's interesting here is that there are so many services involved. There's medical services through the VA. Then there's these nonprofits, as Jim has mentioned. But then when you're in a particular state, particularly, your wife helped you out, but so you're in this state of trauma. How do you find out who has what and what's available and put all that together?
It's hard. You get the Veterans Service Commission that usually has a list of, ideas and organizations out there to help. It is word of mouth, really. You hit your next buddy up and he says, this program worked for me. This one didn't. That's the biggest part, is the word of mouth through veterans.
Matthew Slater, you guys do, in addition to art and music therapy, a lot of other things. We heard a little bit earlier in the program about mindfulness. Is that something you guys employ in your program with the homeless veterans?
We do. We practice it 5 times a week with the staff participate also. We believe it's good for everyone.
What is mindfulness?
So mindfulness is a practice where you're in the moment.
Like meditation?
Yeah, it can be a lot like meditation. And most of our homeless vets, they're, just how do I get through today? They're focused on where's my next meal, where am I going to sleep? So mindfulness is a way of kind of slowing down the thought process. That's a lot of what we work with the vets that we see, is slowing down that thought process to make them be able to focus on a future. So it is literally a focusing on the breath, taking the breath in the body to the different areas where you're feeling pain, and kind of just slowing down the brain. And it's a very it's amazing how it starts the day when you start with that practice. And something that you guys were just talking about, that issue of there's so many nonprofits out there,
right?
And
some that just have veterans in the name and don't really
don't really do all that much. What's called the sea of goodwill out there. Also, there are a lot of programs that are doing a lot of good. I think, we need to also tend to the veterans' families. It's wonderful that, some of us had wives, or the families that we were, born to, or wives, or significant others, but there's not enough out there for the family. And, we need to be able to treat our veterans in our communities. There's no reason why they should have to, if you live in rural Ohio, you should have to go to travel 2 hours. And I know that's something that they're working on, but we need to do a better job.
Right along those lines, Ellen is joining us now from downtown on line 2. And Ellen, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I am calling in from the National Alliance of Mental Illness here in Greater Cleveland, and want to tell you a little bit about a program we have for families of veterans called Homefront. And it's designed to help family members understand and support their loved one, and while maintaining their own well-being as well.
And the name again of the organization is what, or the program?
It's the National Alliance on Mental Illness here in Greater Cleveland, and the program is called Homefront.
Homefront, okay.
And it's a free 6-session education program for family, friends, significant others of military service members, and veterans with mental health conditions.
That's a really great point. I've mentioned a relative of mine who posted something. I've got actually 2 relatives that are dealing with issues, having returned from the Gulf, one of whom was divorced afterward because there were just so many difficulties. And Frank, I got to think your wife had to put a whole lot on her shoulders in your situation too. The idea of having something for family too to sort of get right.
Absolutely. When I got back in 2004, I was medevaced out of Iraq. There was nothing really in the area for families. Or for returning troops. So, the families are very important to let the veteran heal, because the veteran, they don't heal without the families. And my wife, she does have a lot on her shoulders. She is running the program and being able to give back to the veterans too, and still dealing with me and the 3 kids, which technically I'm the 4th kid back at home. And then the dogs too. So, the families do get left in the behind, a lot. People focus on the veterans, but the families need to come along with them.
How hard is it to put you on timeout?
It's hard. I just leave when it's timeout time.
Our number 216-578-0903. Just a few minutes left. Ellen, thank you for your phone call. Let me share an email from Jeff. He said, I just attended the annual Veterans Administration Performing Arts Show in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. The show is a culmination of performing arts and creative arts entries from the year and celebrates the therapeutic, healing, and restorative powers of creative arts activities. I'd highly encourage you to get familiar with it as an unsung jewel of this effort and deal with a burgeoning problem with veterans needing much more help from the ravages of war. And that's Jeff's viewpoint. So clearly this is something that isn't necessarily Cleveland specific, but you're seeing something being celebrated really at a national level in Chapel Hill.
Yeah.
216-578-0903 is the phone number to call. As a veteran, Frank, can you tell me this? What is it that people who aren't veterans can do to either understand better what the situation is or to help? We have Veterans Day coming up, as Bob Rich noted earlier in the program. Often it seems Veterans Day is sort of a day when the post office is closed, and it's sort of, there isn't a whole lot more than that. And anybody who has relatives or who has had their own service realizes how lamentable that is. So what is it people can do and get educated and help?
And that's the thing right there, is get educated. I get the $1 million question. I've had it. How many people have I killed? And surprisingly, it's more adults that have asked me that than a child.
Seriously?
Absolutely. That some people come around joking about it and stuff like that, and that'll trigger a veteran right there. Education is the biggest part. I think every day should be Veterans Day. And that's not just me being a veteran. A lot of these guys are lost. They're sitting home alone, and Veterans Day, they get to go out and have a free meal. Well, I don't say free meal every day, but that company of that meal is what they're looking for, not the free meal.
There's Sophie.
Yeah, there she is. But it's education is the biggest part. It really is.
And do you think there's a viewpoint that people might have that's like, oh, you went to Afghanistan when there wasn't actual, there isn't hand-to-hand combat, or there wasn't this or that, and it's not, quote, as bad as whatever other service might have happened. Is there this kind of ranking for people who aren't in the military about what your service really should have done in terms of your trauma?
No. You go into Iraq, Afghanistan, you're going to be shot at, guaranteed.
I just meant the understanding that people stateside might have about that.
I don't know. I couldn't say. I couldn't say. I've had lucky where I've had a great support system in my area, being around.
Right.
So, what would you say about it?
I asked the questions around here. Matt?
But, being a civilian, maybe I can comment on a little. First thing, let's get that question known as, that's not a question that you ask. That's just a ridiculous.
Oh, how many people?
How many people?
Yeah, that's just ridiculous.
You never ask a veteran that.
And as much as you hear that, people still ask it.
Yeah. So let's make that a new national rule. Yeah. We don't ask that question.
Despite what you might have heard in the Democratic debate by Jim Webb, it's not a question that you ask.
No. Also, we often talk about walking beside the veteran. So what does that mean? I know I'm never going, as a civilian, I'm never going to understand what any veteran has been through. Combat, certainly, but even non-combat. I can't, I'm a civilian. I've never been experienced the training, done what they've done. But what I need to do is understand what is it they need to reintegrate back into our community. And I think we expect them to be civilians. And I think that's a ridiculous expectation. We have to change that. They are changed by their training. No one trains the military better in the United States. I think something that we've certainly done better than Vietnam is, we don't spit on our soldiers. We've been able to separate the politics of the war. But I think that's setting the bar a little bit too low here. We need to do better by our vets. We need to talk about what does it mean to have actual reintegration. What does it mean so when Frank comes back, it's not he has to go through 2 jobs, that there's some understanding from the employer on the issues that Frank is dealing with, and also all the assets, being a veteran, that he brings to a table. And when is a good time to bring them back into employment? And how do we support them until that point? I think there's a lot of work that we need to do so veterans never come to the point where they're homeless.
Great conversation, guys. Thanks both of you for being here. Matthew Slater, Director of Veteran Services for Family and Community Services Incorporated, Ohio. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
And really good to meet you, Frank DiLorenzo, as well. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And Sophie, good to see you too. If you would like to get the last word on today's topic, many ways for you to do it. You can leave a comment on our website, wcpn.org/SOI, or give us a call at 216-916-6397. That's 916-NEWS. Write to us online, SOI@wcpn.org, or head over right now to theciviccommons.org to continue this discussion online. Feel free to follow me on Twitter at Michael McIntyre and the show at Sound of Ideas. The Sound of Ideas is produced by Lauren Wilson and Rhonda Colvin. Our technical producer is Jack Helbig. Mike Ferris is at the controls of our Ohio Channel broadcast. Rachel Rude was on the phones this morning, and Joy Roller is the managing producer. I'm Mike McIntyre. Thanks so much for listening. Talk to you again tomorrow.
At Metro Health, more than 1,700 burn injuries are treated every year at the John A. Gannon Comprehensive Burn Care Center, the state of Ohio's burn center for adults and children, verified by the American Burn Association and the College of Surgeons Committee on Trauma. Here, a multidisciplinary team takes a comprehensive approach to treatment, including music therapy to relieve pain and anxiety, and innovative laser therapies to reduce scarring. More information at metrohealth.org. Metro Health, we're here for you, for all of you.
Support for 90.3 comes from Facing History, presenting Sonia Nazario, author of Enrique's Journey, a Honduran boy's journey to the U.S. in search of his mother, this Thursday, sponsored by the Allstate Foundation. More on this free event at facinghistory.org/community conversations.
Additional support comes from the law firm of Thurman Petrov Group.
Support for 90.3 comes from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's 20th Annual Music Masters Series, celebrating the music of Smokey Robinson. The week-long series culminates with an all-star tribute concert on November 7th. Tickets available now. Details at rockhall.com.
Support